You feel it before you can name it. A quiet ache in the middle of a crowded room. A restlessness that shows up at 11 at night when the apartment is too quiet. You tell yourself it's nothing. You scroll a little longer. You call no one. But your body is not staying silent by accident. It is trying to tell you something, and it has been trying to tell every human being the same thing for a very long time. What if loneliness isn't a mood at all? What if it's a warning system as old and as automatic as hunger or thirst? Think about what hunger actually is. It's not a philosophical statement about food. It's a signal, sharp and physical, designed to make you do something before it's too late. Thirst works the same way. Pain works the same way. Step on something sharp, and your body doesn't wait for you to reflect on the meaning of injury. It screams at you to move. Loneliness, it turns out, may belong to that same family of alarms. The psychologist John Cacioppo spent decades studying this exact question, and his conclusion reframes the entire feeling. Cacioppo argued that loneliness evolved for the same reason hunger did, not to make you suffer for no reason, but to correct a dangerous situation before it became fatal. For most of human history, a person cut off from the group wasn't just sad. They were exposed. No one to share food during a bad season. No one to keep watch while they slept. No one to notice if they didn't come back from the hunt. Isolation wasn't a feeling. It was a countdown. So somewhere deep in your nervous system, a switch developed. When your connections to other people grew thin, the switch flipped and discomfort flooded in. Not to punish you, to move you. The ache was never the problem. The ache was the solution trying to happen. Here's where it gets stranger. Your body doesn't seem to fully distinguish between social pain and physical pain. The neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger ran a series of studies using a simple digital ball-tossing game while participants sat inside a brain scanner. The participants believed they were playing with two other real people. In reality, both were computer programs, and at a certain point in the game, they simply stopped passing the ball. The exclusion was small, a few seconds of being ignored in a video game. But the brain activity that lit up in response wasn't confined to some separate emotional region tucked away from anything physical. It overlapped, significantly, with the same regions that activate during actual bodily injury. Your brain does not fully separate the sting of being left out from the sting of an actual wound. Rejection is not just uncomfortable. To your nervous system, it can register as something close to harm. Now stretch that idea out across weeks, months, years. What happens to a body that receives that signal constantly and never gets to resolve it? This is where the research gets hard to ignore. The psychologist Julianne Holt-Lunstad led a massive analysis combining data from over 300,000 people, tracking how loneliness and social isolation related to long-term health outcomes. The results were staggering. Chronic loneliness was associated with a significantly increased risk of early death, a risk comparable to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, and greater than the risk posed by obesity. Let that sit for a second. Isolation, on a biological level, can behave less like a mood and more like a slow, cumulative injury. Why would evolution build something so punishing? Because for almost the entire span of human history, being alone genuinely was that dangerous. You didn't survive as an individual. You survived as a member of a group, usually somewhere between 20 and 50 people, all depending on each other in 100 invisible ways. The lion in the grass was a threat, but so was quiet exclusion from the fire at night. One could kill you quickly, the other could kill you slowly, through cold, through hunger, through the simple absence of anyone watching your back. So the body built an alarm precisely as loud as the danger it was tracking. This reframes something that feels deeply personal into something almost mechanical. That heaviness after a friend cancels plans again. That flicker of dread scrolling past photos of people together without you. That's not weakness leaking through. That's an ancient circuit doing exactly the job it was built to do, running on hardware that hasn't caught up to elevators, apartments, and glowing rectangles that only imitate connection. Here's the twist most people never consider. The alarm isn't just about being physically alone. It's about perceived connection. Whether the bond actually feels real, not just whether other bodies are nearby. You can be surrounded by coworkers all day and still feel the alarm firing quietly in the background, because none of those interactions register as belonging. You can also live far from everyone you love and feel completely steady because the connection, even at a distance, still feels real to the part of your brain doing the counting. Which means loneliness was never really about proximity. It was always about certainty. Does someone notice if I disappear? Does someone actually know me? Is there a place where I still fit? When the answer feels uncertain, the alarm doesn't stay quiet out of politeness. It gets louder. Consider how differently this reframes every evening spent scrolling instead of calling someone back. Every excuse to skip the group dinner because it feels easier to stay in. Every time the ache shows up and gets quietly explained away as tiredness or a bad day or nothing at all. The ache was never nothing. It was your body doing the only thing it knows how to do when the group starts to feel far away. It was asking a very old question. Am I still connected to anyone who would come looking? Does understanding this make the ache disappear? Not entirely, but something shifts once you see it clearly. You stop treating loneliness as proof that something is wrong with you and start recognizing it as information. A smoke alarm doesn't mean the house is defective. It means something needs your attention right now, before the situation grows. And unlike hunger, which food resolves in minutes, this alarm asks for something slower. A message actually sent instead of drafted and deleted. A visit instead of a like on a photo. A conversation that goes past the surface into something that actually registers as real. The alarm isn't looking for noise. It's looking for certainty. The same certainty your ancestors needed when they scanned the faces around the fire and confirmed, without needing to say it out loud, that they still belong there. Tonight, when that quiet ache shows up, in an empty apartment, in a crowd that somehow still feels distant, notice it instead of numbing it. That feeling isn't a flaw sitting inside you by accident. It's a signal inherited from every ancestor who needed the group to survive, still firing quietly, still asking the same question it always has. Am I still connected to someone who would notice if I was gone? And every time you answer that question honestly, by reaching out instead of retreating, you're not just easing a feeling. You're doing exactly what that ancient warning system was built for all along. If this changed the way you see your own loneliness, hit subscribe. There's a lot more hiding in your everyday behavior than you think. And if you've got a moment that finally made sense after watching this, drop it in the comments. I read all of them.